this isn't your 10th restart. It's your first real beginning. Because Allah got tired of watching you build from survival, when He created you to build from peace. And that's why He keeps making you start again. Not to break you, but to return you to yourself. 1. The collapse you're experiencing. Is Allah unlearning you before He elevates you? It's not that you weren't trying. You were trying harder than anyone even knows. You were waking up for Fajr while your heart still felt heavy. You were smiling at people when you had no energy left to carry yourself. You were still showing up, even when your chest was full of silence and your eyes were tired of holding back tears. And still, everything around you fell apart. The future you had pictured shattered. The people you trusted left. The things you built with sincerity collapsed in front of your eyes. And it didn't just confuse you, it broke something in you, because you weren't doing anything haram. You weren't walking away from Allah. You were praying. You were trying to be better. So why did it still end like this? And that question started echoing in your mind. What did I do wrong? Why does Allah keep letting me lose everything I love? But here's the part your heart has been needing to hear. You didn't fail. You didn't ruin anything. You weren't abandoned. You were being rewired. You see, sometimes we build our lives from places we don't even realize are broken. You may have built that relationship from a place of fear of being alone. You may have built that dream from a place of pain, trying to prove something to people who never truly saw you. You may have pushed for success because you were taught your worth only exists in what you achieve, not in who you are. And Allah, in His mercy, saw all of it. He saw that behind your strength there was exhaustion. Behind your confidence was a fragile heart. Behind your vision was a desperate cry for peace that the world never gave you. And so, He let it fall. He allowed the plan to crash. Not because you weren't good enough, not because you were being punished, but because He loved you too much to let you keep building a life on wounds you've been ignoring for too long. He saw you trying to keep it all together while quietly drowning. He saw you sacrificing your own healing just to keep people around who were never meant to stay. He saw the parts of you that kept saying, "I'm fine," when you weren't. And so He intervened. Silently, powerfully, He let the storm come, because only through the storm could the masks be washed away. Only through the crash could you finally see what you had been carrying that didn't belong to you. And now it feels empty. It feels confusing. It feels like your life is paused, like nothing is moving. But that's not pause. That's purification. Allah is unlearning you. He's slowly peeling away the identity you had to build to survive, so He can bring you back to the one you were always meant to be. The one who moves from peace, not panic. The one who serves Him with presence, not pressure. The one who smiles from the soul, not the surface. That's why everything collapsed. Not because you were weak, but because what you were building could not carry the weight of your next chapter. So if it feels like you're being emptied, it's because He's about to fill you with something better, something real, something yours. He doesn't just want you to succeed in this life. He wants you to be whole in this life and in the next. And wholeness doesn't come from pretending you're okay. It comes from sitting with the brokenness and letting Allah gently rebuild you from the inside out. So if you're looking at your life right now, wondering why you always have to start again, know this: you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from clarity, from sincerity, from surrender. And that version of you, the one that Allah is slowly revealing, will be strong enough to carry peace that doesn't shake with the world. So don't rush to rebuild. Let yourself be rebuilt. This isn't the end. This is the part of your story where Allah starts to show you who you really are, without fear, without ego, without noise. And when that version of you finally rises, you'll understand why it all had to collapse. 2. The emptiness after every restart is where Allah hides the blueprint. Every time you start again, there's this strange silence that follows. At first, you're motivated. You say, "This time I'll be stronger. This time I'll be wiser." You clean your space, you set your goals, you try to move on. But then, a few days or weeks later, you feel it again. That quiet hollowness, that inner fog, like you're moving but not living. Doing things but not feeling them. You think to yourself, why does every fresh start feel so empty? And because you can't explain it to anyone, you carry it alone. You scroll through life like a ghost. You pray, but it feels distant. You smile, but your eyes are still searching. It's not burnout. It's not failure. It's something deeper, something sacred. That emptiness you feel is not a punishment. It's not Allah forgetting you. It's Him preparing you. Because after every collapse, before every real rise, there is a divine pause. A stillness that feels like you're being held between two worlds. The one you just lost, and the one that hasn't arrived yet. And in that in-between space, Allah doesn't speak loudly. He whispers. He whispers through the discomfort, through the silence, through the ache that no one sees but Him. It's in that silence where He's placing the new blueprint, not in your hands, but in your heart. You don't receive divine instruction with noise. You receive it in the stillness, where everything else has been stripped away, where you're no longer building to impress, no longer chasing for approval, no longer reacting from pain. That's why He empties you, because only in that emptiness can you finally hear what you've been ignoring. It's not always a voice. Sometimes it's just a shift, a feeling, a strange peace that settles in your chest without warning, or a sudden clarity that hits you in sujood after weeks of confusion. That's the blueprint. That's Allah showing you where to step next. Not with logic, but with faith. And the reason you don't see it immediately is because you keep looking for something loud, something obvious. But Allah is not like this world. He speaks in ways that require your stillness, your sincerity, your surrender. So if you feel lost after every restart, if you keep saying, "I don't know what to do anymore," know this. That question is the opening. That emptiness is the canvas. That silence is where Allah begins to write something only you were meant to understand. But you must let the space stay empty for a while. Don't rush to fill it with noise. Don't escape it with distractions. Don't run back to the old just because the new is unclear. Because what's being written in this stillness will guide the next chapter of your life. Not just what you build, but how you build it. Not just what you achieve, but who you become while achieving it. You're not lost. You're being recentered. You're not behind. You're being positioned. And the reason this restart feels so quiet is because this time, Allah isn't letting you build from survival anymore. He's teaching you how to build from truth. So wait, feel, sit with the stillness, because when He's ready, that blueprint you've been begging for will unfold in your soul so clearly. You'll wonder why you ever doubted. And when it comes, you won't just rebuild. You'll rise with direction, with presence, with peace. 3. The constant detachment. Is Allah cutting the cords you thought were your identity? Have you noticed it? That slow, silent detachment from things you used to be so sure about, from people you used to fight for, from dreams that once lit your heart on fire. Now when you look at them, you feel nothing, not anger, not excitement, just silence, as if a part of you quietly walked away, without even saying goodbye, and you don't know why. You keep asking yourself, did I stop caring? Am I becoming cold? What's wrong with me? But nothing is wrong with you. Something is finally being made right. That feeling you can't explain, the one where your soul feels like it's floating above everything you used to be, it's not detachment for no reason. It's divine surgery. Allah is gently, patiently, and silently cutting the invisible cords that kept you tied to identities, beliefs, people, and patterns that were never truly you. You just didn't know it at the time. So you made them your home. You wrapped your worth around their attention. You built your purpose on their acceptance. You found meaning in their love, their praise, their presence. But deep down, your soul always knew it was temporary. And now, you're not losing your identity. You're losing your attachment to what was never your identity to begin with. Allah is doing what only the most merciful can do. He's untangling you from the image you had to keep up, from the roles you played to feel enough, from the weight of being what others needed you to be, so you wouldn't be left behind. That's why everything feels like it's slipping away. Not because you're failing, but because your soul is finally shedding the borrowed clothing it wore for too long. You were not created to carry the expectations of this world on your shoulders. You were not created to stay small, so others could feel comfortable next to you. You were not created to hold on to what was only meant to teach you, then leave. This detachment, this strange emptiness that keeps visiting you, it's not emptiness at all. It's space, being made for the real you to return. And here's the part that hurts. Sometimes Allah has to take away what's familiar, to reintroduce you to what's true. So when your heart no longer beats for the things that once defined you, don't panic. That's your soul healing. When you no longer crave the approval that once controlled you, don't grieve. That's your dignity returning. And when the people you thought were forever begin to fade into silence, don't chase. That's your soul being freed from contracts it never signed, but carried anyway. You're not becoming careless. You're becoming clear. You're not becoming numb. You're becoming neutral, free from being emotionally chained to things that were never your peace. So if you're sitting there tonight, wondering why you feel distant from the life you used to love, understand this. You're not falling apart. You're falling back into yourself, the self that Allah always knew, the one before the roles, before the people, before the pain, and sometimes, before He gives you what's meant to stay, He first removes everything you thought you couldn't live without, just to show you that you could. Because you were never made to belong to the world. You were made to belong to Him. And this detachment, it's not the end of your story. It's the opening line to a chapter where your heart finally stops clinging to anything smaller than its divine purpose. 4. The repeated isolation. Is Allah taking you off the stage you were never meant to perform on? You keep finding yourself alone, again and again. People come, but they don't stay. Connections feel strong, then slowly fade. You try to hold on, but they slip through your fingers like sand. And now you're sitting in another season where your phone is quiet, your space is still, and your soul is heavy. You're not angry anymore. You're just tired. Tired of giving and outgrowing. Tired of opening up and being misunderstood. Tired of thinking, maybe this time it's different, and being proven wrong. And in that quiet, when you're most honest with yourself, you whisper the question you've been afraid to ask. Ya Allah, why do you keep leaving me alone? But you're not being left. You're being removed. Not from love, not from mercy, but from the stage. The stage where you had to perform strength just to be accepted. Where you had to earn your place in people's lives by shrinking yourself. Where you were applauded but never understood. And Allah, in His silent mercy, saw how much that performance was costing you. He saw how you smiled in public but cried quietly on your pillow. He saw how loud you laughed just to silence the ache in your chest. He saw how you kept showing up for people who would never notice when you disappeared. And He whispered, "No more." So He began to pull you back. One situation at a time. One person at a time. One heartbreak at a time. Not because you weren't worthy of being seen, but because you were never meant to be seen there. He pulled you off the stage because you forgot how to breathe without performing. You forgot how to sit with your soul without editing it for someone else's comfort. And now, in this isolation, everything feels so quiet, so painfully quiet. But here's the truth. This quiet is not emptiness. It's arrival. You are arriving at a place within yourself that no one else could walk you to. A place where masks fall off, where distractions no longer work, where you finally stop asking the world, "Who should I be?" and start asking Allah, "Who did you make me to become?" Because you were never created for the crowd. You were created for closeness. And sometimes Allah will clear the room, just so you and Him can meet again, without the noise. So if you feel like the people are gone, if your circle has shrunk to one, if no one checks in like they used to, know this. Allah hasn't placed you in the corner. He's placed you in sacred solitude, not to break you, but to rebuild your heart in the absence of noise and the presence of truth. He's removing the pressure to impress. He's removing the addiction to validation. He's removing the constant need to be enough for others. Because you already are enough when you're enough for Him. So the next time you find yourself alone again, don't ask, "Why am I being left behind?" Ask instead, "What is Allah trying to show me when there's no one else around?" Because in that silence, He's showing you a version of yourself that isn't built on applause. It's built on presence. It's built on peace. It's built on truth. And that version of you was never meant to perform. It was meant to live, to breathe, to worship, to return. And the path back to that version is paved with divine isolation. That doesn't wound you. It wakes you. So don't rush to fill this space. Let Allah finish what He started. Because when you finally walk off that stage for good, you'll stop acting like you're okay and actually be okay with Him and with yourself. 5. The failures you blame yourself for are where Allah protected what your doer couldn't see. You keep going back in your mind to that moment, that decision, that risk you took that didn't work out. Sometimes it hits you in the middle of the night. Sometimes it creeps in while you're praying. And sometimes it's just there in the background of your smile. That voice saying, "If only I had done things differently." You carry that memory like a scar. Maybe it was a failed relationship. Maybe a missed opportunity. Maybe a job, a move, a friendship that felt so right at the time, but ended so wrong. And you keep blaming yourself for trusting too much, for dreaming too big, for not seeing the red flags, for saying yes, or for saying no. It plays in your mind like a film that never stops. Every time you try to move forward, your soul whispers, "You messed up. This is your fault. But what if that's not true? What if that failure was not your fall, but your protection? What if Allah stepped in at the exact moment when your dua wasn't specific enough to see the danger? You asked for peace. You asked for barakah. You asked for something good, but you didn't know what was hidden in what you were asking for. You didn't see the cracks behind the compliments. You didn't hear the lies behind the promises. You didn't feel the poison hidden in what looked like a blessing. But Allah did. And He didn't expose it by showing you a red flag. He exposed it by letting it fail. Suddenly, painfully, completely. Because sometimes, the only way to break you away from something harmful is to let it hurt enough that you never go back. It wasn't because you were weak. It wasn't because you were naive. It wasn't because you were unworthy. It was because Allah saw something you couldn't, and instead of explaining it to you, He protected you in a way that would make sense later. And even now, as you sit here thinking about what could have been, He's still protecting you. You see it as a failure, but Allah sees it as a redirection. He closed a door, not because you didn't deserve what was behind it, but because you deserved better than what was about to come through it. He didn't let your dua go to waste. He just answered it from an angle your heart didn't expect. Because He knows, if He gave you what you thought was right, you might have stopped praying. You might have settled. You might have built your life around something that would have quietly broken you from the inside. So He broke it early, while you still had time to heal, while you still had time to rise, while you still had time to see, it wasn't my mistake, it was His mercy. So tonight, if your heart is still holding guilt over what didn't last, over what didn't go your way, over what you think you ruined, let go. Because Allah doesn't hold you hostage to your past. He knows how much you didn't know. He knows how much you trusted. He knows how pure your intention was, even if the outcome wasn't. And that's why He forgives what you still punish yourself for. That's why He keeps giving you another chance, not just to rebuild, but to believe again that what you lost was never yours in the first place. It was just a lesson, a shield, a necessary detour, so your real life could finally begin. You didn't fail. You were rescued. And one day, maybe not today, you'll look back at that moment and whisper to yourself, Alhamdulillah, it didn't work out, because what Allah saved you from was bigger than anything you could have seen. And what He's preparing you for is softer, safer, and so much more yours than anything you had to let go of. 6. The silent nights that haunt you are the chambers where Allah repairs what you never spoke about. There's a certain kind of night that doesn't feel like rest. The world goes quiet, but your mind gets louder. Everyone else is asleep, but your thoughts are wide awake. Your body is still, but your soul keeps pacing back and forth. And in those nights, where the room is dark, but your chest feels even darker, you wonder if anyone could ever really understand what you've been carrying. Because the pain isn't loud. It's not the kind of pain you cry about on the phone. It's not the kind that shows in your eyes. It's the kind you buried years ago. The kind you built your life around. The kind you made peace with, just to survive. You don't even talk about it anymore. Because what's the point? People move on. They forget. Or worse, they minimize it. So you kept it. You wrapped it in silence and let it become part of your shadow. But Allah never forgot. He was there in the exact moment your heart broke and you had no words. He was there when you looked fine in front of others, but were falling apart inside your own chest. And it's in these silent nights, the ones that feel endless, the ones where the loneliness feels alive, that he begins his repair. You see, the world heals through noise, but Allah heals through stillness. When you're finally alone with the ache, when there are no distractions, no fake smiles, no conversations to hide behind, he enters the space where even you stopped looking, not to remind you of what broke, but to hold the parts of you that never got the chance to heal, because there were things that happened to you that you never fully processed. You kept moving, you kept achieving, you kept helping others, but you never turned inward. You never paused long enough to ask, how is my heart, really? So Allah created a pause for you, a sacred silence, a night that no one else can see, but He fills it with unseen mercy. You may think you're just overthinking, just being weak, just in your head again. But what if you're not? What if those thoughts are the wounds finally surfacing because they know you're finally safe enough for Him to clean them? What if your sadness is not a setback, but an opening, an invitation from Allah to come closer than you ever have, not with strength, but with surrender? What if this night, the one you're crying through quietly, with your hands on your chest, is the exact moment He's rewriting what hurt you into something that will one day heal someone else? Because here's the secret. The most powerful healing doesn't happen when the pain is loud. It happens in the chambers of silence, where only Allah walks in, where no one else is allowed, where you don't even need to speak, because He already knows. He knows the betrayal that still echoes. He knows the grief that still lingers. He knows the regret you've never said out loud. He knows how tired you are of being strong, and He's not disappointed in your weakness. He's proud of your honesty, because when you finally let your walls fall, when you finally whisper, Ya Allah, I don't even know what's wrong, I just need you, that's when the repair begins. That's when the mercy floods in, not as lightning, but as light, soft, quiet, steady. So if tonight is one of those nights, the kind that makes you feel like you're unraveling in private, don't panic. You're not breaking. You're being cleaned out. You're not being punished. You're being recentered. And Allah is not far. He's closer in this stillness than in any gathering you've ever been a part of, because this is sacred ground, where no one can hear your tears, but He counts every single one. Let the night be silent. Let the ache rise. Let your soul exhale, because the healing that's happening right now is for the parts of you you never thought could be healed. And the one doing it has never, not for a single second, left your side. 7. The resistance you feel when you try to rebuild is your soul refusing to pretend again. You tell yourself you're ready. You've rested. You've reflected. You say, it's time to move on, time to rebuild, time to get it together again. And so you try. You set your alarms. You write new goals. You force yourself to re-enter the world as if everything is fine. But something's wrong. Something inside you resists. You can't explain it. You just feel heavy, unmotivated, disconnected. You can't concentrate like you used to. You can't push like you used to. The energy you had before, it's gone. And no matter how hard you try to force momentum, your heart doesn't move. And now you're frustrated with yourself. You feel guilty, ashamed. You ask, why can't I just bounce back like I always do? What's wrong with me this time? But there's nothing wrong with you. You're not lazy. You're not weak. You're not undisciplined. You're just done pretending. The resistance you feel is not a block. It's a boundary. Your soul is no longer willing to fake its way through life. It doesn't want to rebuild the same way you did before, chasing validation, living for approval, wearing masks just to fit in places you've outgrown. Before, you rebuilt out of fear. You rebuilt out of ego. You rebuilt to be seen. But now, your soul is tired of performance. It wants presence. That inner resistance is Allah gently holding your heart back from returning to the life that once drained it. Because He doesn't want you to rebuild quickly. He wants you to rebuild authentically, brick by brick. Not for applause, not for appearance, but for peace. And peace takes time. Peace requires honesty. And that's the real reason you can't force it this time. Because your soul has finally had enough of rushing into things that only leave you more empty. So if you feel stuck right now, if you're beating yourself up for not being productive, if you feel like the engine inside you won't start, take a moment to listen. Beneath the frustration is a soul that's whispering, "Please don't rebuild the same way we broke." Allah is slowing you down on purpose. He's not ignoring your pain. He's not delaying your growth. He's protecting your spirit from falling back into a version of life that you only learned to survive, not enjoy. He's removing the part of you that rushed everything so you can finally walk with intention. Because now you've seen too much. You've grown too much. You've felt too much. And your soul refuses to pretend it's fine, just to make everyone else comfortable. That's why you feel this inner resistance. Not because you're broken, but because you're becoming whole. And wholeness doesn't move fast. It moves real. So don't force the comeback. Let it come naturally. Let it come from truth. Because when you finally rebuild from a place of peace, not pressure, from sincerity, not survival, you'll find that everything that felt hard before suddenly becomes light. And this time, you won't need to act strong to feel strong. You won't need to chase anything to feel worthy. You won't need to rebuild your old life just to prove that you can, because what you'll be building now will actually be yours from the inside out, with Allah at the center and your soul finally at rest. 8. The reason you keep starting over is because this time Allah wants you to build without the wounds. You're tired of seeing the same cycle. You get back up. You start again. You give your best. You whisper to yourself, maybe this time it'll last. And then it falls apart again. The plan doesn't go as expected. The person leaves. The progress resets. The peace doesn't stay. And now you're standing in the rubble of yet another restart, wondering if you're cursed, wondering if maybe you're just meant to live in pieces. You ask Allah, why do I always end up here again? And maybe tonight, you're too tired to even ask anymore. You've just accepted it. That maybe you're the problem. Maybe you're broken in some way that can't be fixed. But let me tell you the truth, your soul has been aching to remember. You're not broken. You're bleeding. And every time you tried to build before, you were building with the wound still open. You tried to love again, but you hadn't fully forgiven yet. You tried to lead, but you were still carrying the shame of who you used to be. You tried to rise, but you never buried the grief of what collapsed the last time. And Allah, the one who knows you more intimately than you know yourself, saw it. He saw that you were building over pain, not through healing. He saw the invisible weight in your chest that you never told anyone about. He saw the quiet ache in your heart that you kept pushing aside, saying, I'll deal with it later. But there is no later in divine mercy, only now. So he stopped the story. Again, and again, and again. Not to punish you, not to humiliate you, but to save you from building a life that would collapse the moment pressure returned. Because anything built on wounds can't withstand peace. The moment love enters you, doubt it. The moment joy comes, you fear it. The moment things get good, you brace for them to fall. Not because Allah is cruel, but because pain became your default. And now, He wants to free you from that completely. That's why you keep starting over. Because this time, He doesn't want you to rebuild the same structure with a slightly better plan. He wants you to dig deeper, beneath the grief, beneath the habit of survival, beneath the voice that keeps whispering, "You'll never get it right." This time, He's asking you to build without the wounds, not by pretending they never existed, but by finally laying them down, by finally bringing them to Him, raw, unfiltered, without shame, by saying, "Ya Allah, I don't want to carry this anymore, not into the next thing, not into the next love, not into the next version of me." Because how can something last if your soul is still holding on to what was never healed? So if life has reset again, if you're starting from scratch again, if you feel like everything you worked for disappeared overnight, remember this: you're not being sent backward, you're being stripped of everything that no longer belongs to the person you're becoming. Because the version of you that Allah is preparing will not flinch when peace comes, will not sabotage love when it shows up, will not question joy when it stays. That version of you will know how to receive, not just fight, not just chase, not just survive, but finally receive. And that version cannot be born from pain. It must be built from surrender, from softness, from presence, from purity. So if it feels like you're starting over for the 100th time, maybe it's because, for the first time, you're building without pretending, without hiding, without bleeding all over the walls of what you're trying to protect. This time, you're not rebuilding, you're being reborn. And that is not failure. That is divine strategy. Allah hasn't reset your life to hurt you. He's reset it so that this time, finally, you can rise whole, unshaken, unwounded, unapologetically you. And when that version stands, nothing will bring you back to the old, because you won't fit there anymore. You'll be too healed to go back, too aligned to pretend, too peaceful to perform. And it will all make sense. Not today, but one day, you'll whisper in Sujood, "Ya Allah, thank you for not letting me build when I was still broken." Because now, you're not just surviving the pain, you're becoming someone who no longer builds from it. Maybe you don't see it right now. Maybe all you see is another collapsed beginning, another closed door, another chapter that didn't last. But Allah sees more. He sees the strength it takes just to try again, with a heart that remembers every time it was left behind. He sees the quiet pain behind your patience, the effort behind your silence, the purity behind your exhaustion. You're not weak for starting over. You're chosen. Because Allah only resets the story when the next version of it is too sacred to build on broken foundations. So this time, don't call it a failure. Call it what it is, a divine rebuild, one that doesn't begin with action, but with healing, with release, with trust. You haven't lost time. You haven't lost your path. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from clarity, from experience, from submission. And that's why this beginning will be different. Because this time, you're not just building something, you're becoming someone. And Allah hasn't forgotten you. Not through the fall, not through the silence, not through the 100 restarts. He's been here, quietly rebuilding you, the way only He can. And soon when it's time, your soul will rise in a way it never could before. And this time, it won't fall again, Insha'Allah.